My name is Ethan Cole, and today I'm telling you how one quiet dinner turned into the moment I realized everything in my life was built on a lie. Someone tried to push me out of my own family circle, and what happened next changed every connection I thought I could trust. Stick around, this one hits fast and deep. And before we dive in, take a moment to subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Your support keeps these real-life stories coming strong. Earlier that week, I still believed my in-laws tolerated me even if it was only for Jenna's sake. I was 32 years old, living in Fairhaven, Montana, and trying to keep the peace. So when Jenna mentioned a private family gathering, I assumed I was included, or at least not purposely forgotten. I'd left a project briefing early and arrived at the Ironwood Room, a polished spot in the Central District where even the curbside service felt like it came with a background check. I wore a gray blazer, the one Jenna's mother, Marjorie Hale, couldn't criticize immediately. Inside, the front-of-house staff scanned the reservation list. Ethan Cole, a pause, a frown. Nothing under that name, sir. I tried again. Maybe under Hale, my stepfather-in-law, Richard Hale. The server's finger stopped on the page. Reserved seating for 6. They're already here. Already seated. Without me, he pointed across the room. And there they were, Jenna, her parents, and her sisters Brooke and Paige, all gathered around a corner booth, sipping wine and laughing with the shine of a staged commercial. Before I could step forward, a cold voice slid in behind me. "Ethan," Marjorie said. Wearing a smile that didn't reach her eyes, she looked me over like she'd discovered a stranger standing in her hallway. "You didn't assume you were part of tonight, did you?" Her tone was sweet on the surface and sharp underneath. Behind her, Jenna pretended not to see me, tapping her glass like she was counting seconds instead of facing reality. Brooke and Paige hid their giggles behind their menus. Marjorie leaned close enough for me to smell her perfume. "This place isn't really your kind of scene. There's a bar down the block where you'll fit better." The server shifted awkwardly, unsure where to look. My hand tightened on the check-in stand. I'd tolerated Marjorie's digs for 4 years, but this wasn't a slip-up. It was a staged rejection. That's when something clicked the memory of a connection they had no idea I still had, a name that wasn't supposed to belong to someone like me. Marjorie tilted her head. "Honestly, I expected Jenna to warn you." Jenna finally glanced up, but dropped her eyes right away. Brooke and Paige didn't bother hiding their amusement now. I swallowed, steadying myself. "I am family," I said, even though the words felt weak. Marjorie's smile sharpened. "By marriage? Don't stretch it." The server tried again. "Sir, would you prefer a seat near the bar?" Marjorie waved him off. "He knows where to go." She stepped back with a satisfied nod. Sure, she'd won, but something in me hardened. "Actually," I said, straightening my blazer, "I need a favor." The server blinked. "Yes? Could you ask Daniel Rivers to come out here?" Marjorie's eyes widened. "Daniel Rivers? The owner? You're posturing." I met her stare calm, steady, done with being small. "No," I said quietly, "I'm just getting started." Marjorie let out a thin, brittle laugh, the kind people use when they think they've won. "You really believe you can talk your way into this? Do you even understand the kind of people who eat here?" I didn't raise my voice. "I understand it better than you think. I had a hand in getting this place off the ground long before you ever stepped into the Ironwood Room." That froze her. Her smile faltered, just barely, but enough. Across the room, Jenna stirred her drink again, eyes fixed on the glass like it was safer than looking at me. Brooke and Paige exchanged confused glances. I added, "Daniel and I opened his first spot together, back in the Millstone District. I ran the bar at the time. He hasn't forgotten." Marjorie's lips parted, some comeback forming but never landing, before she could recover. The front-of-house staff hurried back. "Mr. Rivers is coming out now." Her arms slipped to her sides. "Jenna," she hissed, "what is he talking about?" Jenna kept her head down. She didn't even attempt an answer. Then the service doors swung open, and out walked Daniel Rivers older, now gray along the edges, shoulders broad like he still lifted crates himself. His eyes swept the lobby. The second he spotted me, his whole face broke into a wide grin. "Ethan Cole," he boomed, crossing the lobby in a few long strides. He wrapped me in a hug so firm it felt like a reunion after years apart. "Didn't expect you to call me out here," he laughed. "For you." Always, I said, playing it casual. He pulled back. Last time we worked together, we were drowning in renovation dust and fighting over drink ideas. And my idea won, I said with a tight grin. Best-selling drink for 3 years, he admitted proudly. You always had the instincts. Behind him, the server stood frozen. Marjorie stared like the air had been knocked out of her. And at the table, Jenna finally looked up. He was wide. Her hand paused mid-stir. Daniel turned to the staff. Give this man whatever he wants. Seat him, serve him, spoil him. Marjorie twitched. Wait. Daniel blinked at her, noticing her for the first time. Are you with Ethan? She's my mother-in-law, I said. Daniel nodded slowly. Ah, that explains the energy. Marjorie tried to recover. We booked a table under my husband's name. This is a private family gathering. Daniel cut her off without hesitation. Great. Then Ethan's joining you. No way he stands out here like some outsider. Not in my restaurant. Her eyes widened. But we're full. I'll add another chair, he said. Or shift the booth next to you if I have to. Ethan gets a seat. That's final. Marjorie opened her mouth, then shut it. She had nothing left. Daniel leaned toward me again. Come meet a few people later. Got new hires from that project we started back in the Riverbend district. Might bring that model here. Sounds good, I said. He clapped me on the shoulder before heading back inside. Loud enough for half the room to hear, he added. This man helped launch 3 of my places. Saved me more than once. He's basically family. When he disappeared, the server turned to me, flustered. Mr. Cole, your table. I gave a relaxed shrug. Sure, let's go greet them. We walked toward the corner booth. Jenna looked up as I approached, no anger. No greeting, just quiet guilt. Paige lowered her eyes. Brooke pretended to fix her napkin. Marjorie sank into her seat like her strings had been cut. I slid into the open spot beside Jenna. She shifted her small handbag out of the way. Still silent, almost at once. The staff rushed back one, adding a chair, another setting a place. Another unfolding a napkin with a dramatic flourish. Daniel had clearly given orders. Every time someone addressed me as Mr. Cole, Marjorie flinched. A server stepped forward. Would you like to see the reserve selection, sir? Marjorie choked mid-sip. Sure, I said casually. Daniel usually keeps a few bottles off menu for me. The server nodded quickly and hurried away. Marjorie tried to smile, but it looked painful. Well, this is unexpected. Definitely it is, I replied. She gestured to the table. Jenna didn't mention this was private. She assumed you wouldn't enjoy something like this. This place isn't really your kind of scene. Jenna said nothing. She stared down like the pattern on the tablecloth needed studying. Brooke cleared her throat. So, Ethan, you and Daniel go way back. I nodded. I helped open his first place. Trained about half his early staff. Paige blinked. Why'd you work in the business? Used to, I said. I still handle consulting sometimes. Marjorie couldn't help herself. Her voice snapped in. Well, bartending and consulting are different things. I turned toward her slowly and smiled, not sharp, but certain you're right. Marjorie waited for a comeback, but I kept my voice steady. That's exactly why I charged Daniel a mid-5-figure fee when I helped him secure the permits for this place. She froze. Even Jenna's glass tapped the table as her hand slipped, and I didn't bill him for the introductions I arranged afterward. I added, it would have felt cheap. Marjorie let out a stiff, humorless sound. Some people are just lucky enough to know the right crowd. I wasn't handed anything, I said. I fought for every contact I have. Not everyone grows up with a built-in list of favors. Her eyes narrowed. And some of us actually understand legacy. Legacy's nice, I replied calmly, as long as you recognize where the funding came from. Jenna twitched at that. Paige frowned. What does that mean? I took a sip of water, letting the moment settle. Marjorie, remember when your son-in-law needed a cash boost for his tech venture a while back? She stiffened. Irrelevant. It is when I'm the one who covered his shortfall, I said, placing my napkin down. Richard was 10 days away from sinking that bridge loan. I stepped in quietly, no announcements, no praise. Brooke and Paige snapped their eyes toward their mother. Marjorie's jaw tightened. That was ages ago. Strange, I said, because I still receive quarterly updates on my share. Jenna finally looked at me. Not angry, just confronted with the truth she had ignored. The table sank into a heavy silence. I leaned back. Anyway, I'm glad to be here. Private family gatherings matter. A server returned with a bottle from the reserve selection, one Daniel used to keep tucked away in the back room. Marjorie looked like she wanted to hurl her drink across the floor. Under her breath, she muttered, "People in your line of work shouldn't," I cut in softly. "Marjorie, you might want to review who actually makes nights like this possible. Folks like me built this industry from the ground up." She clamped her mouth shut. Jenna looked down again, her ears flushed red. For the first time all evening, I felt the balance shift. The weight wasn't on me anymore, it was on them. The tension wrapped around the table, as everyone waited for someone else to speak. Brooke and Paige darted glances between their mother and me, unsure where to land. I faced Marjorie. "Let me be clear. I've never bragged about any of this. Not the investments, not the help, not the times I quietly kept things afloat." Her smile was thin. "Yet here we are." "Exactly," I said. "Here we are." I leaned in a little. "You think I married into wealth?" "I didn't. I married into your family." "That's the same thing," she muttered, double quotes. "No," I said firmly. "It isn't, because you've never understood that everything I have come from actual work." Paige shifted in her seat. "We know you own a business. You think I run some casual bar or just pour drinks," I replied. "But my first business came from a rented storage unit and $3,200 saved from renovation crew jobs. I invested in multiple startups, bought property at 20. I didn't stumble into success, I built it." Marjorie dismissed me with a wave. "And that makes you special." "No," I said. "It makes me honest." I turned to Jenna. "Remember that studio you wanted to open in the Millstone district? You were terrified the small business grant would fall through." She gave a tiny nod. "You never got the grant," I said softly, "because you didn't need it. I funded all of it, every dollar, and told you to say a private investor stepped in so you could feel proud of it." Paige's mouth dropped open. "I wrote your business plan," I continued, "met your contractor, reviewed your entire lease, and I never once asked you to tell anyone." I looked back at Marjorie. Same with Richard's Hale Financial Group. He was sinking, you know it. I wrote a check and kept the doors open without making a spectacle. Marjorie shook her head fast. "That's not. And when Brooke lost her scholarship," I added, "I covered the remainder through a private donor coverage you all thanked in the family group chat." Jenna stared at me. "That was you." I nodded. From across the room, Daniel called out, "If it weren't for Ethan, I wouldn't have made payroll last year during that vendor delay." The table went silent again. "You've treated me like I'm lucky. Jenna chose me," I said, "but you've had it backwards from the start." Marjorie opened her mouth, but not a sound came out. "I didn't marry up," I said steadily. "All of you married into my future. I've carried this family financially for years without asking for applause. I picked up my whiskey tumbler, letting the moment sit. I'm not the outsider at this table. I'm the reason this table exists tonight." No one dared respond. The silence felt like a final verdict. But Marjorie wasn't done. She straightened her scarf, gathering every ounce of pride she had left. "If all that's true," she said slowly, "why are you living so comfortably? Jenna supports you, doesn't she?" Jenna stayed frozen. Paige gasped. Even Brooke blinked hard. "You dress well now," Marjorie pressed on. "Drive a nice car. Lots of free time. Seems like my daughter's hard work is keeping you afloat." I actually laughed, not out of joy, but disbelief. "You really think that?" I asked. I angled myself toward Jenna. "Tell them where the 18% down payment came from." Jenna said nothing. "Jenna," I said again, calm but firm, "tell your mother." Still silent, I exhaled. "All right, I'll say it." I turned to Marjorie. "Every dollar for that house came from my early trade earnings." I kept my voice steady as the truth settled over the table. "I paid that 18% down payment long before Gina's studio had a single customer," I said. "She didn't tell you because she wanted to look independent. I let her be because I loved her." Jenna's shoulders curled inward. If she could have disappeared into the carpet, she would have. I funded her brand, covered the entire storefront build-out, and signed the lease under my own company so she'd qualify, I added. "All of that, and I never once threw it in your face." Paige whispered something under her breath. Brooke stared like she'd just watched a puzzle snap together. Marjorie sat back as if I'd slapped the wind out of her. She tried to recover, smoothing her scarf. Well, money isn't everything. What matters is who keeps this family standing. Someone has to show up. You mean you? I asked quietly. She didn't answer. You humiliated me tonight, I continued. My calm finally cracked. This wasn't an accident. You staged this entire night to put me in my place, but you ended up exposing yourself. Jenna's voice broke through at last, barely above a whisper. I didn't think she'd actually go through with excluding you. I turned to her. So you knew? I thought she'd calm down, she said, staring at her hands. She told me you wouldn't enjoy it, that it was for the girls. I laughed once, sharp and humorless. Nothing says girls' night like letting your husband walk into a public ambush. Nobody spoke. The wine sat untouched, the plates untouched. The air around us had frozen. This dinner wasn't about celebrating anything, I said, standing. It was about clarity. Jenna finally looked up. I wasn't angry, just done. I made my decision before tonight, I told her gently. Tonight just confirmed it. Marjorie's voice trembled. What decision? That this little performance of yours, I said, turning to her, isn't the start of anything. It's the end. Jenna's eyes grew wet. I'm not going to argue, I told her. I'm not raising my voice, but I'm finished. You're posturing, Marjorie hissed. No, I said. I'm free. I looked around the table one final time. Her sisters, her mother, all staring like they didn't recognize me. I gave all of you more than you ever gave me, and you proved exactly why leaving is the right choice. Then I walked away, steady, no drama. Behind me, no one followed because they knew they'd pushed too far. The drive home was silent. No music, no calls, just the road and the finality sitting in my chest. When I reached the house, I parked in the driveway, not the garage. It felt symbolic, like I was already halfway gone. Inside, the smell of a vanilla room diffuser lingered in the hallway. I didn't bother turning on the lights. I went straight to my workspace. At the bottom drawer sat the lockbox in the storage drawer. I opened it. Inside were every contract, bank record, transfer, and agreement tied to Jenna's Studio B, because she insisted it be under her name. But the funding structure? 58% equity. Mine, I placed the entire business portfolio folder on the desk and photographed everything. Every signature, every wire transfer, every file, uploaded to the cloud, backed up on a backup USB. I was on tea leaving empty-handed. Then I pulled out my suitcase, the gray one I only used for work trips, and packed with no emotion at all a few clothes. My laptop, my watch, my travel ID, the charger Jenna always borrowed. I left half of the closet untouched. I wasn't sneaking out. I was walking out. I put the suitcase by the door and waited at 9:45. The key turned. Jenna walked in like nothing had happened. Shoes off, bag down, routine on autopilot. Then she saw me sitting in the dark. She jumped. Ethan, what are you doing? I stood. I'm leaving. Her eyes shot to the suitcase. You're serious? I meant it at the table. I thought you just needed to cool off, she said defensively. Jenna, I've been cooling off for 4 years. She crossed her arms. So this is it. One bad dinner and you're done. One bad dinner? I said quietly. You sat there while your mother mocked me. You watched her shut me out of a dinner I paid for half of, in a restaurant I helped build, and you said nothing. She told me you weren't coming, Jenna whispered. She said it was just for the girls. I didn't know. Stop, I cut in. You know exactly who she is, and you let her set me up. Jenna dropped her gaze. So what now? You just leave? I already have. She stared at me, disbelief turning sharp. You'll wish you'd reconsidered this. No, I said. You will. I pulled out the document from my jacket, the signed ownership summary. I own 58% of your studio, I said, holding it up. Jenna's face strained. What? You asked for a loan. I gave you equity. You signed it twice. You never read the fine print because you trusted me, and I never used it against you until tonight. Ethan, I'm not taking your business, I said. I'm just done protecting it. You wanted separate? Now we're separate. She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it again, realizing she had nothing solid to stand on. I opened the door. Goodbye, Jenna. I didn't slam it. I didn't shout. I just left with the one thing they never expected me to take back. My control. By late weekend morning, chaos had replaced silence. My phone showed 17 missed calls, 5 from Jenna, 8 from Marjorie, the rest probably Paige and Brooke, trying from new numbers. I ignored all of them. Then the texts began. Jenna, we need to talk, please. I told my mom you were bluffing. Tell me you're not doing this. You don't even care about the studio. I set the phone down for the first time in years. I felt something honest peace. While Jenna kept sending guilt-soaked messages, Marjorie Hale finally jumped in with her usual venom. Marjorie, you're a disgrace. You humiliated us. You won't get away with this, I laughed. Out loud, it was the first genuine laugh I'd had in weeks. About an hour later, a number from a polished law firm in the Central District appeared on my screen, the kind of office known for helping wealthy kids sue roommates over noise complaints. I didn't pick up. Instead, I messaged my own legal advisor, a friend I once helped win a nasty property dispute. Me, activate the exit plan. Studio equity clause goes live, he replied instantly, drafting the memo. Let them make the first move. That was the problem with Marjorie. She thought wealth meant having the loudest name or the biggest house. I'd built my life differently, quietly stacking contracts, keeping receipts, and staying underestimated. By noon, Jenna tried a new strategy guilt, wrapped in panic. Jenna, my studio team is worried. They think we're shutting down. Don't punish them over our issues. You said forever, and I had. Back when forever actually meant something. That afternoon, Marjorie marched into the studio, pretending she ran the place. She assured the studio staff that everything was fine. What she didn't know was that one of them had already forwarded my signed ownership document around the group chat. 8% ownership. Operational control shifted to me. Effective immediately, 2 of Jenna's most loyal employees quit before closing time. By the end of the week, foot traffic dried up. The town caught on fast. People realized the brand they admired had been built on a foundation I created, not Jenna. She tried one last angle. Jenna, you don't want a court battle. Let's be reasonable. I sent her a photo of the signed investment agreement. Her signature, my signature. The 58/42 equity split circled in red. She didn't text again. The next day, her lawyer reached mine. They wanted to renegotiate. My attorney didn't draft anything. He simply sent back the clause confirming the equity was non-revocable in the event of divorce, silence on their end. Their whole world had leaned on one assumption, that I would stay quiet, stay polite, stay manageable. But I wasn't angry anymore. Just finished a few days later. The building management office from the luxury tower Jenna and I once toured called me back then. Marjorie insisted it was too much space for a couple without kids. She didn't know I'd bought the unit quietly earlier this year, under my name when I arrived with my suitcase. The front desk manager smiled. Mr. Cole, your keys are ready. That evening, I stood in front of the massive windows of my high-rise loft, letting the city lights settle around me, a whiskey tumbler in hand. I listened to one final voicemail from Marjorie. Marjorie, this isn't over. Ethan, you need us more than you think. I smiled to myself. The real twist was simple. I had never needed them. They needed me. And now they had to live without the safety net they'd taken for granted. The peace in that loft felt unreal. No passive-aggressive comments. No cold silences pretending to be kind. No eggshells, just quiet. I'd finalized the divorce the week before. Clean break, no alimony, no joint assets. I left Jenna the house, the furniture, even the keepsake dishware Marjorie forced us to register for. I kept the things that mattered, my assets, my businesses, my dignity. A few days later, Daniel Rivers called. You finally cut the anchor, he said, not even disguising his satisfaction. I always wondered why you stayed tied to that family. Me too, I admitted. He wasn't just calling to gossip. He had a proposal, a high-end whiskey lounge project in the heart of a booming district out of state. You helped build my first 3, he said. Let's build one for you now. I didn't hesitate. Send me the plans. I'm in. Marjorie tried calling again. I blocked her. She used her sister's phone. Blocked. That bridge wasn't just burned, it was cleared, leveled, and forgotten. Then Jenna sent a final message. "Ethan, can we talk? No apology. No accountability." I set the phone face down and walked away. Not everything deserves a response. I received an alert from the finance monitor tied to the studio. Chapter 11 bankruptcy. It didn't shock me. Without the systems I'd built, supplier contracts, tax handling, payroll structure, the studio was just a pretty storefront waiting to fall apart. I didn't celebrate, but I did breathe easier. I was finally free from being the quiet husband they kept in the background, the one they left off group texts, the one expected to wait in the car. No more now. When I stepped into a room, it was on my terms. When I looked in the mirror, I saw a man who built himself and walked away when the cost of staying was too high. Best of all, I didn't just leave their story, I started writing my own. One late weekend morning, I sat on the balcony with a cup of coffee, scrolling through news on my phone. A headline from the Fairbairn Ledger caught my eye. "Richard Hale steps down as managing partner of Hale Financial Group amid restructuring." I clicked immediately. The article was short. Vague, undisclosed financial issues, temporary leadership changes, the usual corporate fog, but I knew exactly what had happened. The loan they refinanced a while back had finally come due. The one I quietly co-signed and floated during their worst months. Without me, there was no payment to make, no safety net, no bailout, no firm. I set the phone down and watched the skyline. The air felt lighter than it had in years. They tried to write me out of their story like I was background noise. But the truth was simple. I held the pen the whole time. I didn't destroy their world. I just stopped fixing the cracks. And when everything finally collapsed, they discovered who I really was, not because I said it, but because I left. My phone buzzed. Another message from Jenna. "I didn't know he was stepping down. Thought you'd want to know?" I smiled. No reply. She still didn't get it. This wasn't about staying informed. This was about closing the circle and realizing they'd pushed me out long before I ever walked away, so I drew a new circle. Wider, higher, higher. Mind, in the end, the real legacy wasn't money. It wasn't property. It wasn't even controlled. It was freedom. My final word.